Breaking news, it's been revealed that the UK economy grew by 0.3% in November. That's according to data from the ONS, the Office for National Statistics.
Let's talk to the Chief Economic Advisor at the Centre for Economic and Business Research, Vicky Pryce. Morning to you, Vicky. What are we to make of these figures? Is it encouraging or is it essentially flat?
It's essentially flat. In fact, if you look at the last 3 months, we've seen a decline in GDP of 0.2%. So if you look at the 3 months to November compared to the previous 3 months. So what we're talking about is either flat or a decline, a small decline. But for the month itself, good news, it's reversed the drop that we saw in October, exactly replicating the fall, but actually with an increase. So 0.3% decline in October, 0.3% increase in November, which is good news. What it may mean is that if that continues and we see a little bit of growth in December, we might avoid the technical recession. So we may see the last quarter of 2023 actually be slightly positive. And if you look at what happened in the previous quarter, which saw a decline, if we do that, then at least we won't have a recession as such. But it doesn't mean that we are really growing at any particular speed at all. So it's all still pretty flat, I'm afraid, just as you're rightly saying.
And when somebody like you wakes up to the news that we've just been talking about, sort of escalation of problems in the Middle East, and particularly the effect it might have on global shipping, what do you think about the next 3 months, for heaven's sake?
Yes, it's worrying, particularly about inflation and the supply chains. I mean, we went through this whole period of COVID having issues about getting things from one part of the world to another, which of course caused quite a lot of increases in freight rates, and then of course the final prices as well that we were paying at the shops. It took quite some time for all that to balance out again and become more normal. Well, we may be entering a situation where this is going to worsen again. Now, the real worry is that, of course, it may have an impact on inflation, may have an impact on what happens to interest rates ahead. With the economies, though, clearly likely to be affected for some time to come from everything that happened before with very high interest rates, there is the worry that the central banks will think, well, inflation is under pressure again, let's not cut interest rates as fast as we would otherwise do. And that's a concern. It's international factors. They are not really affected by high interest rates at all, and therefore they shouldn't come into the mix. But I fear they may do, and we've already heard a little bit of that from the governor of the Bank of England the other day.
Yeah, and actually we've had the figures earlier in the week, haven't we, for sales, Christmas sales for retailers, and those figures were considerably down on the year before, which I presume doesn't bode well for 2024, does it? We've got to start getting the economy growing again.
That's absolutely true. And we've seen for December, according to the British Retail Consortium, a drop in volume terms, in terms of retail spending, which is very bad news. And indeed, the Christmas period was not great. And what we're also hearing now is from the hospitality sector that the beginning of January has been pretty bad, with loads and loads of restaurants and pubs closing and not necessarily being made up by more firms that are coming into the market. So there is an issue of what type of resilience the economy will have. There are some good news. We have to bear that in mind. There is a reduction in national insurance contributions rate, which happened in January. So this month, there is a little bit of benefit offsetting some of the increases in taxes that we've seen in other ways. And we're also having the increase in minimum wages, which is affecting, of course, businesses negatively, but at least for people, it puts a little bit more money in their pockets coming in April. And there will probably be some tax cuts coming in the budget. So perhaps there is a little bit of help that will be coming, but the trends otherwise suggest a little bit of an improvement in services, but we have the manufacturing sector and construction still in the doldrums. So that's a real worry looking ahead.